Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode we shall be asking and answering one simple question. What is the best Battleline infantry for Guard in 10th edition? Will it be the gas-mask boys of Krieg that storm the enemy trench, or will the Cadians stand proud and take the gold? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's not mess around any further. Let's fix bayonets and charge right into today's episode. Now, before we start ranking the different infantry options, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. All of the Battleline Guard infantry choices are good and all of them are viable. If you see your favorite infantry choice maybe not quite as high on this list as you would like, don't be disappointed. Don't take that as an indicator that you shouldn't be using those units. Infantry is fundamental to how the Guard plays, and whether you have got Cadians or whether you've got Death Corps of Krieg, whether you've got Kachans or infantry squads, as long as you have a solid foundation to your infantry core, whatever choice you go for is going to work. But if we're being brutally honest, some options are better than others. Some units are good, other units are great. And when we're saying whether a unit is better on this list, or if it's high on this list, or if it's low on this list, what we're really comparing is, does it pack that little bit more punch? Does it have a slightly better ability? Is it just overall a more efficient choice?
Attention, Guardsmen! The Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately, or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
So with all of that said, now let's get into the video proper. We'll start off by taking a look at the shared stat line of all these different Guard choices. Regardless of what unit you pick, they all have the same stat line. A movement of 6, a toughness of 3, a 5+ save, 1 wound, leadership 7, and OC 2. What that stat line says about our Guard is they're not particularly fast, they are not very durable at all, their leadership is somewhat middling, but they do have quite good objective control, and even a handful of Guardsmen will be able to hold an objective against far more elite units. So with that in mind, Guard infantry are primarily designed to hold objectives, and this is going to be one of the main things that we judge them against. How well can they play the primary objective game? The second factor we shall be looking at with these units is going to be their mobility. Whilst they all share a 6-inch movement, is there any other things that they have which allow them to move quicker and get to those objectives faster? Thirdly, we'll be looking at their equipment and damage output, and last but certainly not least, a big factor is going to be points cost. Is there one unit that can do a job significantly cheaper than another? So with the shared stat line covered and the additional criteria laid out, let's get to the unit at the bottom of our list, and one which might be a controversial take, but the Cadian shock troops. On the surface, Cadians look like a good infantry choice. You know what? They are. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there's no real bad things here. Cadians get access to multiple special weapons. They can take plasma and melters, which are considered to be some of the better special you can get. They've got some good punch, some good damage output. They allow the unit to punch above their weight to actually threaten some bigger things. And they also have a reasonable points cost. They come in at 60 points for 10, 120 points for 20, which puts them bang in the middle of the pack when it comes to infantry costs. Sadly though, Cadians are held back by 3 small disadvantages. The first one is that their sergeants don't get any good special equipment. You can give them a las pistol and a chainsword, or a bolt pistol and a chainsword, or you can give them a drum-fed autogun, which is essentially a las gun that always fires 2 shots, but even in rapid fire range it still only fires 2 shots, so it's just a las gun that occasionally gets 1 extra strength 3 shot. And when you compare some of the options that the other infantry choices get, like plasma pistols and power swords, it really is a bit underwhelming. So that's the first strike against them. Secondly, Whilst their unique shock troops ability seemed great for playing the primary game, it's actually somewhat useless. How it works is at the end of your command phase, if this unit is within range of an objective marker you control, that objective marker remains under your control, even if you have no models within range of it, until your opponent controls it at the end or the start of any turn. Basically, your Cadians can make objectives sticky. The problem with this ability is twofold. Firstly, it requires you to get onto the objective and hold it. It's not sticky at the end of your turn, it's the end of your command phase. So at the start of your turn, in your command phase, you're not on an objective, let's say in the mid board, and then when you move onto it and you hold it, that's fine, but your Cadians haven't stickied it. They have to survive the next player's turn with them being guardsmen, with toughness 3 and a 5 save is, even with 20 guys, is not guaranteed. And then if they survive it, they then have to pass a battle shock test. And then if they survive the battle shock test, then they get to control that objective. In addition to it being somewhat difficult to actually pull off on the objectives that you really want to sticky, like the mid-board ones, you also find that it's not really needed. Guard have a lot of infantry. Most players, if they're going mechanized, where everyone's in a transport, is going to have 40, 50, 60 infantry. Most guard deployment zones are somewhat cramped. Unless you're going down a very elite route, you're going to have units to spare. And so the idea of having an objective, sticking it, like your home objective, for example, and then moving forward and moving past it, just isn't very realistic. There's always going to be units that you have that can hold the backfill objectives, like your artillery. Even with some of the points increases recently, you're still going to have artillery that can sit on an objective. And if you go into the mid board, well, you're going to have so many units piling onto it that, again, you're not going to have really an issue with needing to hold an objective and then not holding it and no enemy units being near it. It just doesn't really work. So sticky objectives with guard don't work because you've got plenty of things to hold the back ones and you've got everything else pushing forward. And the third reason why Cadians at the bottom of this list is there is another Battleline unit which we'll be getting to later, which does everything they do but just slightly better. So in summary, Cadians are a relatively maneuverable infantry choice because they have special weapons, not heavy weapons, and they can be taken at a good points cost and in lots of numbers. But they don't quite have the same punch as other units, and their abilities are a little bit lackluster. But moving on, next on the list, we have the Humble Infantry Squad, a staple of Imperial Guard armies for literal decades. Now, the defining thing about the Infantry Squad is the ability for it to take heavy weapons. For every 10 models in the unit, you can take a special weapon and you get the full suite, flamer, grenade launcher, melter gun, plasma gun, sniper rifle, which is amazing. But also for every 10 models in the unit, you can also take a heavy weapon. This can be an autocannon, a las cannon, a missile launcher, a mortar, or a heavy bolter. This gives them access to some truly punchy weapons, especially when we are looking at the las cannon. The issue that a lot of special weapons have is they cap out at strength 8, strength 9, especially if we're looking at plasma guns, grenade launchers, and melter guns, which means even though they might have the damage and they might have the AP, they don't have the strength to reliably threaten vehicles. You're often fishing for those 5 and 6s. Now, if you bring enough infantry squads and you leverage enough melters, you're going to roll enough 5 and 6s for that to add up for you to get that damage through. But sometimes you just don't get those 5s. And sometimes what you need is a big gun to do some big damage, and that's where the las cannon comes in. And I think it's the best option for your infantry squads in 10th edition because we are on a vehicle and we are on a monster meta. One of the reasons why the infantry squad is ranked higher than the Cadians on this list is their sergeants do get the full suite of good weapons. They can take plasma pistols, bolt guns, they can take power weapons. And so unlike the Cadian sergeant who's got to run around with a essentially glorified las gun, your infantry squad guy gets a plasma pistol and a power sword, meaning he can actually do some meaningful damage. In addition to this, the infantry squad's ability is actually really good. Defenders of Humanity means that you get the benefit of cover if you are within range of an objective marker you control. Now bear in mind that infantry squads have good objective control. They have OC2. It means that typically if you move one of these units onto the objective, they are going to control it, and therefore they will get the benefit of cover. This makes them more durable. This makes it easier for them to hold objectives and fulfill that primary obligation, that number one thing we want to do, which is to stand on circles, just to hold those primary objectives. Small side note here, but it's entirely possible to have an infantry squad which has got a 3-up save, a 4-up invulnerable save, and a 5-up feel no pain when stood out in the open. You can take a Death Corps Marshal, put it in that unit, he can tell the squad to take cover. That means they have +1 to their save characteristic. They can stack that with the benefit of cover, putting them on a 3-up save. So even if they're right on the open, they get a 3-up save, and Death Corps Marshals can actually join infantry squad. They can join Death Corps and they can join infantry squads, which means that they can have his 5-up feel no pain ability, which he hands out to them. And if you, this is a bit expensive, so you probably wouldn't do this, but if you really want to push it as far as possible, you could put a Primaris Psyker in the unit, which gives them a 4-up invulnerable save. So infantry squads, even though you probably wouldn't have the Psyker, and you probably pick between the Psyker and the Death Corps Marshal, the point is that even if that objective is right out in the open, you're playing on a light terrain map, infantry squads are one of the best units we have for taking and holding ground, and that's why they're up here. So if infantry squads are so good, why are they 3rd on this list rather than 1st? The issue is that their firepower, their punch, relies upon them standing still. Heavy weapons only hit on a ballistic skill of 5+. And if you want them to hit on a 4+, you have to stay still. But movement wins games. And so with infantry squads, your damage output is significantly reduced. Even if you're putting take aim on the unit, your damage output is significantly reduced when you are trying to move up the board and take the objective. And if you are putting take aim on them, it means you can't take advantage of the durability things we were talking about by going take cover with the benefit of cover. So infantry squads are really good at holding ground, but you have to move them up there to get there, which reduces their damage output. Some of you might say, well, why wouldn't you just take them with the special weapons then? Leave the heavy weapons at home. Infantry squads can take 1 special weapon per 10. If you leave the heavy weapon at home, it doesn't allow you to take an additional special weapon. They can't become like Cadians, take 2 special weapons for every 10 models. So leaving the heavy weapons at home, there's no real advantage to doing that. And if you want to have a unit which can just take more special weapons and also be pretty bloody durable, then you might as well look to our next option, which is the Death Corps of Krieg. That's right, the Gas Mask boys are coming in 2nd place. They are taking the silver medal. Now, being honest, I easily could have put Death Corps of Krieg at the top, and they could be considered joint 1st on this video. They do everything. Death Corps of Krieg have got durability. They have got firepower, and they have got fantastic abilities and war gear as well. Firstly, your Death Corps can get more special weapons than any other infantry choice. Your sergeants get plasma pistol and power sword. You can take 2 special weapons per 10 men, and these can be flamers, grenade launchers, melter guns, or snipers. Spoiler alert, you're pretty much always going to take the melter guns and the grenade launchers. And then you could also take 2 Voxcaster guys, or you cannot take 2 Voxcaster guys and instead give them plasma guns instead. So in total, your Death Corps of Krieg unit in a 20-man blob is going to have 2 plasma pistols, 2 power swords, 2 grenade launchers, 2 melter guns, and 2 plasma guns, giving them a total of 10 special weapons if you include the power swords. That is a lot of potential boom boom, especially when you combine it with their inbuilt ability, Grim Demeanor. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll if the unit is below starting strength, and add 1 to the wound roll as well if this unit is below half strength. Yep, that's right, you get +1 to hit if 1 dude in your 20-man blob, 1 guy with a lasgun, has died. And you can combine that with take aim. I know a lot of people say you can't. Those people are wrong. You can have a +1 to the hit roll because that is affecting the dice, and then you can have the take aim order because that is increasing a different stat, that is increasing your ballistic skill. So your Deathcore of Krieg, after losing one guy with their 10 special weapons, can be hitting on 2s. That is proper punchy. That is Daka. And if they go below half strength, and bear in mind that the first 11 dudes in this unit are going to just have las guns, so you don't mind losing those first 11 dudes really, you can get +1 to wound, which starts allowing you to muscle into the territory of things like the humble infantry squad. Because their whole thing is, oh, we can threaten tanks, because we've got weapons that go above strength 9. Well, if you've got Deathcore of Krieg and you've got a 9-man squad left over, then all of those special weapons are wounding on 4s. That is eminently more doable than fishing for 5s and 6s. 4s isn't great, but when you've got 2 plasma pistols and 6 other special weapons going through and you're hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s, you've got enough shit to throw at the wall to make that happen. Now, of course, this makes Deathcore Krieg very killy. But one of the other big things that we are looking for in our infantry is their durability, how they can take and hold objectives. And Deathcore are some of the tankiest infantry we get. Firstly, they get access to an officer who can lead them called a Deathcore Marshal. And what officers you combine your infantry with is very important. He not only gives the unit an order, which can be take cover, putting them onto a 4-up save, but also he gives the whole unit a 5+ feel no pain. 4-up followed by a 5-up is on a 20-man blob. It's a lot of wounds for your opponents to chew through, especially if they're trying to use anti-infantry firepower to do so, because they only damage 1. And then you can combine this ability with the war gear that Deathcore get, which is a Deathcore Medipack. Now, they can take one of these per unit, whether it's a 10-man unit or a 20-man unit. And the Deathcore Medipack means at the start of your command phase, if the bearer's unit is below starting strength, you can return up to D3 destroyed Deathcore troopers to this unit. So every command phase, you can just add in D3 guys that have died. So let's say your opponent, he chucks a load of bolter shots into you. He managed to wipe out half of your unit between the save and the feel no pain. It's like, yeah, great, I've managed to do some good work there. You can be like, nope, D3 back in. I'm going to get up to 3 guys back into my squad. I've undone potentially 30% of the work that you've just put onto that unit. These extra guys not only make your unit more durable to incoming fire, also plays into the primary game. More guys coming back equals more objective control. Guys coming back could potentially be placed at the front of the unit, and this happens in your command phase, means that afterwards you can move. You can get an inch or 2 of extra movement if you roll and get the maximum guys destroyed back. So if the Deathcore of Krieg are so good, what could possibly beat them? Well, like I said, this is more of a joint first than anything else. But if you had to twist my arm, and I'd say what is the most competitive infantry, competitive battle line for Guard right now, I would have to say the Katachan Jungle Fighters. I know, a bold take, a hot take indeed, but bear with me. On the surface, Katachans look terrible. They only get flamers as their special weapons. Sure, they can take 4 of them, but this is flamers in a vehicle monster meta. What are they going to do? Their only war gear abilities is Voxcaster. Their inbuilt ability is Jungle Fighters. It's kind of cute. When they charge or were charged, they get +1 strength and +1 AP, but still 1 attack per guy. Their sergeants only get las pistols. They don't even get chainswords. So it's 1 attack per dude. Strength 4, AP 1. It's not huge. It's flamers, which are unreliable and not relevant to the meta. It's lasguns. So why are Katachans so good? Why are they up there? Well, it comes down to one little ability, and it's a core ability, and that is they can scout. They have a scout move of 6 inches. This ability is phenomenally powerful and is almost unique within the Guard. I think off the top of my head, the only things that we have that can scout are Katachans and Scout Sentinels, and that is it. Scouts means they can, before the game begins, after both players have rolled off, so you find out who goes first, you can move the unit. You can move them 6 inches. Now, this allows you to do multiple things with Catachans. Firstly, if you go first, you get to move 6 inches forward, and you can and then when it comes to your movement phase, you can move another 6 inches, or you can go for move and move another 9 inches, or you can move and advance. So you could have a unit of Catachans which in one turn could go up to 21 inches in movement. Now, you're unlikely to go 21 inches, but you are very likely to go 15 inches because your scout move and then your move. This opens up all sorts of primary objective game and all sorts of secondary objective game. If you have Catachans and you're running tactical objectives and the first card you pull is Cleanse, no problem, no dramas. Scout move 6, move, so you move 6 plus 3 is 9, on to the middle objective, Cleanse, no problem. Oh, you'd probably teleport to homers. Oh, can't bring my reserves in to get it in my opponent's deployment zone, turn 1. Not a problem. Keep those reserves for when something else comes up, maybe behind enemy lines comes up as an objective. No issues. Scout move the Catachans to the middle of the board, plot the teleporter homer down there. Catachans don't do damage. Catachans aren't drawable, but they play the primary game incredibly well because you can, if you take 20 of them, or you can take lots of them because they're very cheap. They're the cheapest infantry as well, so you can take lots of them. They don't require huge officer support. You can literally take 2 units of Catachans and Strachan, and that's all they need because Strachan did 2 orders. And so you can take 40 infantry, dogpile onto objective early on. That's primary game sorted on one flank for at least a turn or 2. And you can also do secondary game as well. So Catachans, they don't do damage, they're not drawable, but they score points and they are very, very maneuverable. And that is what wins you games. Points mean prizes, movement wins games. Fill out your Mordy and Glory bingo cards now. Another great thing about Catachan jungle fighters is they're not so order dependent. Between their scout move and their regular move and advance, if there isn't an order nearby for move, you just haven't got one spare, that's okay. They can generally get where they need to get. If they need to damage some enemies, maybe there's a unit of chaff or light infantry that's pushing forward onto an objective from the opponent's side, that's okay. They don't need take aim because their flamers hit automatically. So this not only allows you to maybe save a few points if you need, I can't have an officer for every unit, it's getting too expensive, that's okay. Save a few points, your Catachans will look after themselves. So not only is it list efficient and order efficient, but it also means that later in the game, when your Catachans inevitably die, you'll probably want to use reinforcements on them to bring them back. When they come back, you don't see any drop off from their damage output. One of the advantages they have over Death Corps Krieg is when the Kriegers die and they come back, if you've got no officers that are also coming back in that turn, maybe you've not got Gaunt's Ghost or something, dropping back down, then the Krieg won't have any orders when they come back, and you will see their damage output drop off because suddenly they're not hitting on 2s, they're hitting on 4s. But Catachans, they come back, they're still also hitting with those 4 flamers. So it's a small advantage, but it's one that I have noticed distinctly in every game when I've run my Catachans side by side with my Kriegers. Now that covers all of the guard battle line and how I would rank them. So that's the end of the video, right? No. M. Night Shyamalan twist coming in here. We have got a honourable mention. Now, this next unit, I'm not going to say is higher or lower than any others. It's an honourable mention, and it's one that I think we need to keep an eye on as a community. And that is the Rough Riders. Now, Rough Riders, I understand, are not infantry, okay? The horses, cavalry, yeah, I get it. But you can use them in the same way as infantry. Firstly, they're cheap. It's 60 points for 5 of them, 120 points for 10 of them. That puts them bang in the middle of the pack when it comes to infantry costs. It's in between the Catachans and the Death Corps. And speaking of the Catachans, you can use them in a similar way. So your Catachans have got a scout move of 6, and then they can move 6, and they can move. Your Rough Riders just move 12. They don't scout, but they can just move 12. And they are regiments, so they can receive move. And they're regiments, so they can have reinforcements put on them as well. They are also reasonably durable. They start off with a 4-up save, So when you order them take cover, they go up to a 3-up save. That muscles into the territory of the infantry squad. So those fastest Kachans, pretty durable like infantry, and they have 2 wounds apiece. So if you take 5 of them, it's the same durability as having a 10-man infantry squad. If you take 10 of them, it's the same as having a 20-man blob as well. 2 wounds per model also gives you a small advantage in objective control, because if a Kachan unit or another infantry squad takes 1 casualty, takes 1 wound I should say, then you lose 2 OC out of that unit straight away. But if a Rough Rider unit takes 1 wound, they don't lose any objective control, because they need to take another wound to lose a model to then start losing OC. They're also toughness 4, which feeds into their save and their wounds, meaning that small arms fire is typically going to be wounding them on 4s rather than 3s. Finally, their damage output is reasonable. Not great, not terrible. Each Rough Rider comes with a hunting lance, and the hunting lance can either have a frag tip or a melt tip. You pick when you go into combat which tip you're going to have. So one combat you can use frag tips, the next combat you can use melt tips. The frag tips are D6, weapon skill 3 plus the hit on 3s natively, which is nice. Strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. It does have lance, so it does get +1 to wound when you charge with it. Obviously, strength 4, AP 0 isn't great. But then you've got the melter tips, which are just like close combat melters. They are 1 attack, weapon skill 3, so not bad again. You are more likely to hit than not. You've got strength of 9, AP -4, D6 damage, but you also get lance. So you get +1 to wound, and as we said with the Kriegers, getting +1 to wound because you're wounding on 4s makes that eminently more possible. The Sergeant gets a power saber as well, which gives him 4 power sword attacks, which is pretty good. Most Sergeants only get like 3 power sword attacks. The power saber gives him 4 power sword attacks. The Steeds get their hooves, which add in 2 more strength 4 attacks to the mix. They only hit on 4s though, to be fair. And you can give 1 every 5 models a goad lance, which gives you 2 attacks, weapon skill 3+, strength 6, AP -2, 2 damage. And again, it has lance. So it's sort of an intermediate between the frag tip and the melt tip, although you don't get to pick. The goad lance is always the goad lance. You can't pick when you've got a guy with the goad lance who wants to then use a hunting lance later. Adding this all together, you have a pseudo infantry unit which is fast, it's tough, it can do objective game, it's also got reasonable damage output as well, and can benefit from orders and stratagems. So what's the rub? Why aren't these guys number 1? The thing that's holding me back on them is twofold. Firstly, I haven't field tested them yet. I field tested every other infantry choice to death, all right? But I haven't field tested Attila Rough Riders yet, so this is theory crafting. Secondly, terrain. Infantry could just seamlessly move through L-shaped ruins and walls, no problems whatsoever. Cavalry can't. They have to go round. And so if you're playing on a dense board, WTC or UKTC, whilst you might have a 12-inch move, if you're having to spend a lot of that move going around terrain, you might find that you're losing quite a lot of inches, and so the Kachans are actually faster than you because they can essentially go in a straight line. But finally, third sort of reason, I know I said 2, but I've just thought of another one. They're quite big bases, they're quite big models, so a unit of Rough Riders, especially if it's 10-man strong, you may struggle to hide that from line of sight, which may compromise their defensive profile and their durability if the enemy can just see them and blast them. But that finally covers all of this. But as I always say, this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think I've been too harsh on the Cadians? And are you excited for the potential of the Rough Riders? If you enjoyed today's video, as always, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure, and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bonbon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Wolf, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.